Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into an excerpt from Chapter 3 of The Whole Brain Child. It's a really fascinating book, and this chapter looks at how different parts of the brain connect, or, sometimes how they really don't connect.
Yeah, spectacularly fail to connect sometimes.
Exactly. So our source material introduces this great idea of brain integration. Our mission today is to unpack that, especially the upstairs and downstairs brain concept, and try to figure out why kids can seem like, well, completely different beings from one minute to the next, and then pull out the practical tips from the text for building that connection in their brains. I mean, you know those moments, right? Like the story in the source about Grant, the 6-year-old. His sister takes his crystal.
His most rarest crystal.
Right. And one second he's fine, the next he's just furious, growling, ready to attack. Feels so dramatic.
It really does. Why do they shift like that between being thoughtful and just completely losing it?
Yeah, feels like chaos sometimes.
It does from the outside, definitely. But the source gives us a really helpful way to think about what's actually going on inside.
Okay, so let's unpack it. Where do we start?
Well, the book uses this great analogy. Think of the brain like a house with a downstairs and an upstairs.
Okay, a house. So the downstairs brain, what's that part?
That's the lower part of the brainstem, the limbic region. It's more primitive. Think of it like the foundation and the first floor.
Basics.
Exactly. It handles things like breathing, blinking, those really fundamental survival instincts like fight or flight, and also those big, raw emotions, intense anger, fear.
So like if a ball flies at your head and you just duck without thinking.
Yep.
Or when you get so mad you feel your face get hot, like that kindergartner in the text at the dentist, that's downstairs.
Absolutely. Primal reactions, urgent needs happening on that first floor.
Got it. Okay, so then the upstairs brain must be fancier.
Much more sophisticated, yeah. It's the cerebral cortex, especially the part right behind your forehead, the prefrontal cortex. It's the newer part, evolutionarily speaking.
So where all the complex thinking happens.
Precisely. Thinking, imagining, planning, analyzing things. The source calls it like a light-filled second story, with windows offering a clearer view of everything.
And what kind of skills live upstairs?
This is where you get things like making sound decisions, controlling impulses, managing your body and emotions. Self-awareness, empathy, morality, all that higher level stuff.
Wow. Okay, so you've got the reactive downstairs and the thinking upstairs. It seems pretty obvious you'd want them working together.
That's exactly the point the book makes. Integration. The brain works best when upstairs and downstairs are linked, like having a good staircase between the floors. They call it vertical integration.
And how does that help, that connection?
Well, think about it. A connected upstairs can sort of supervise the downstairs. It helps manage those big reactions, keeps them from totally taking over. It gives perspective.
Does the downstairs offer anything useful up? Sounds like just raw feelings.
Oh, definitely. It's not just about control from the upstairs. The downstairs provides vital info, emotions, gut feelings, what your body's telling you. The upstairs needs that input to make good decisions. You don't want decisions made in a vacuum, right?
Yeah, disconnected from how you actually feel.
Exactly. So integration means that free flow, that sturdy staircase, letting the whole brain work together.
Sounds ideal.
It is, but, and this is so important for understanding kids, the book stresses we need realistic expectations. Because that upstairs brain, well, it's not finished cooking yet.
The under construction zone.
Totally. The downstairs is pretty much good to go early on, but the upstairs isn't fully mature until, like, the mid-20s. It's under massive construction in little kids and gets a huge remodel in the teen years.
So like the house analogy. The first floor is done, but the second floor has still got scaffolding up.
Perfect way to put it. And because it's unfinished, those sophisticated upstairs skills, decision-making, emotional control, empathy, they just aren't reliably online for kids all the time.
Which is why they can get stuck downstairs sometimes.
Exactly. They get trapped downstairs, leading to those moments where they seem totally out of control or make choices that just make you shake your head.
And it's not just that it's unfinished.
Yeah.
There's something that can actually block the stairs, right?
Yes, the amygdala. It's this little almond-shaped bit in the limbic area, so downstairs.
Yeah.
Its job is basically to be a threat detector. It processes emotions really fast, especially anger and fear. Think of it as the brain's watchdog.
The alarm system.
Yeah. And when there's real danger, it's fantastic. It can make you react before you even think. Like, throwing your arm out in the car if someone breaks hard. Or yelling at a snake. That's the amygdala saving you.
Great for snakes, maybe not so great for, like, a sibling dispute.
Exactly. Acting before thinking isn't always helpful in everyday life. The book called this flipping your lid. The amygdala just takes over, sends the downstairs brain into high alert, and kind of shuts off access to the upstairs thinking brain.
And in kids, that amygdala, that watchdog, it can act like a baby gate on the stairs,
Yeah.
blocking the connection.
Such a crucial idea. Remember the 3-year-old having a meltdown over the wrong color popsicle?
Yeah.
His amygdala has fired up and slammed that baby gate shut. All his brain's energy is rushing downstairs to deal with the threat. No orange popsicles. He literally cannot access his upstairs brain to calm down or be reasonable.
So telling him to be reasonable or calm down is pointless then. His reasoning brain is offline.
Completely offline. Your job, the book says, is to help unlatch the gate. Connect first. Calm him down. Soothe him. Maybe pick him up. Do something silly. You have to calm the downstairs before the upstairs can come back online.
And for older kids, like the 7-year-old scared of the bike.
Same idea, different trigger. Her amygdala is creating that fear, maybe based on a past fall or just anxiety. It's cluttering the staircase, making it hard for her upstairs brain, the planning, courageous part to get through.
So you need to clear the path somehow.
Right. Maybe talk through the fears gently, offer small rewards, break bike riding into tiny steps, help clear that fear clutter.
So the big takeaway here, kids aren't always trying to be difficult. Sometimes they're just doing the best they can with a brain that's literally still being built and can get hijacked.
It totally reframes how we see their behavior, doesn't it? It doesn't excuse everything, but it changes our approach. We understand they might be physiologically incapable in that moment.
And that understanding is key when we think about things like tantrums. The book distinguishes between different kinds.
Yeah, this is super helpful. Not all tantrums are the same. Is it an upstairs tantrum or a downstairs tantrum?
Okay, upstairs tantrum, what's that?
That's when the child is still basically using their upstairs brain. They've decided to throw a fit, often strategically, to get something. They know what they're doing. And importantly, they could stop if they chose to.
Like screaming for the toy in the store. They're making a conscious effort to get it.
Exactly. They have a goal. For these, the book advises firm boundaries. Calmly state the expectation, explain why the behavior isn't okay, and follow through with consequences. The book uses that phrase, never negotiate with a terrorist for this specific situation.
Right, you're teaching them this strategy doesn't work. Building patience.
Yep, and those tantrums usually fade when they stop being effective.
Okay, so that's upstairs. What about a downstairs tantrum?
This is totally different. Here, the child is completely overwhelmed. They've flipped their lid. The amygdala is in charge. They are literally unable to use their upstairs brain for logic, control, or thinking about consequences.
So they genuinely can't stop themselves.
Correct. Think of a toddler totally losing it during hair washing. They're flooded with stress hormones. Their thinking brain is just offline. Reason won't work.
Trying to lecture them or give consequences right then would just make it worse.
Definitely. You're talking to a part of the brain that isn't listening. The book says here the first step is nurturing, connect, and calm. Loving touch, a soft voice, maybe removing them from the situation, help soothe that amygdala, unlatch the gate.
And then, once they're calm, once the upstairs is back online.
Then you can talk about what happened, teach, discuss better ways to handle things. They're receptive when they're calm.
Wow. Just knowing that difference feels huge. Knowing when to be firm versus when to be comforting first.
It's a game changer for discipline, really.
Okay, so how do we proactively help build that staircase, strengthen the upstairs brain? What are the strategies?
Well, strategy #3 is engage, don't enrage. Basically ask yourself, is my response likely to trigger their reactive downstairs brain or appeal to their thinking upstairs brain?
Give me that restaurant example again.
Yep.
Tina and her 4-year-old.
Right. He's making defiant faces. The typical response might be, stop that right now, or no dessert.
Right.
Command and demand.
Yeah, that's what.
But that often just triggers the downstairs defiance. It becomes a power struggle.
So how did Tina engage instead?
She got down on his level, acknowledged his feeling. You seem angry, is that right? Validated it. I know you're disappointed about the food rule. And then she asked him to use his upstairs brain. Can you think about a fair number of bites to eat and make a deal with Dad?
And he actually did it. He thought about it and proposed a deal. No meltdown.
Exactly. He had to kind of battle his downstairs impulse to just defy and use his upstairs brain to think and negotiate. He got practice in problem solving, compromise, all good upstairs exercise. The misbehavior itself was dealt with later, calmly.
That's great. Teaching skills, not just demanding obedience.
Exactly. It helps them practice using that upstairs brain.
Okay, what's strategy #4?
Use it or lose it. Simple idea. The upstairs brain gets stronger with practice, like a muscle, so we need to give kids chances to exercise its functions.
Like practicing sound decision-making.
Yes, let them make choices, within safe limits, of course. Simple stuff for little kids, blue shoes or white shoes. Bigger things for older kids. Camp or the soccer tournament? How will you spend your allowance?
And the book says let them experience the outcome right. Don't always rescue them.
Crucially important. Obviously, you ensure safety, but letting them see the natural consequences of a choice helps them learn. It's about long-term skill building, not immediate perfection.
Okay, what about controlling emotions and body? How do we exercise that?
Teach coping skills explicitly. Deep breaths, counting, using words for feelings, safe physical outlets like punching a pillow or running around. Talk about flipping your lid. Give them alternatives to just lashing out. The more they practice managing big feelings with their upstairs brain, the better they get at it.
And self-understanding, helping them know themselves.
Ask why questions. Why do you think you did that? What were you feeling right before that happened? What do you think went wrong on the test? Get them reflecting. The book mentions a dad helping his daughter think about potential homesickness before camp and plan how she'd cope. Journaling or drawing can help too.
Empathy seems huge for the upstairs brain, too.
Absolutely. And we can exercise it just by prompting them to think about others. Why do you think that person looks sad? How might your friend feel after you said that? Get them perspective taking. It builds compassion.
And the book links all these decision-making, control, self-understanding, empathy to developing morality.
Right. It all builds towards a sense of right and wrong, thinking about the greater good. Discuss moral dilemmas. What if? Questions. What would you do if you saw someone cheating? Challenge their thinking. And, of course, model it yourself. Your actions speak volumes.
Makes sense. Okay, one more strategy. Strategy #5.
Move it or lose it. This one connects the body and brain directly. Physical movement can actually change brain chemistry and help kids get unstuck from the downstairs brain. Like Liam, the kid overwhelmed with homework.
Exactly. He was totally shut down, trapped downstairs by overwhelm, and he bolts outside, runs around like crazy, comes back, and feels better, ready to work.
How did that work physiologically?
The running helped shift his internal state. It calmed his amygdala, helped unlatch that baby gate, and let his upstairs brain reconnect. It's proven that changing your physical state, moving, breathing deeply, even smiling, changes your emotional state. The body sends signals up to the brain.
So his run literally sent calm down signals back to his brain.
Essentially, yes. It released tension and restored balance, integration. So practically, when your kid is losing it, getting them moving can really help.
Yeah.
For little ones, maybe make it a game, some silly chase.
Like loving trickery.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Fun plus activity shifts the whole state. For older kids, you can explain it. Sometimes moving your body helps your brain feel better when you're stuck, like that coach having players jump around.
Or just go for a walk and talk.
For sure. Movement helps clear the blockages, lets integration return. This is also helpful for us, but the book says we can teach kids this stuff too.
Definitely, they can grasp these ideas. The book offers the hand model of the brain. It's brilliant.
How does that work?
Okay, make a fist. Your wrist is the brainstem basics. Thumb tucked inside is the limbic area, the amygdala, emotions, watchdog. Fingers curled over the top are the cortex, the upstairs thinking brain.
Got it. Fist, wrist, thumb inside, fingers over.
Right. Then you show them when you get really upset, you might flip your lid, you lift your fingers straight up, see? The upstairs thinking part is disconnected from the downstairs feeling part.
Oh, wow. That's such a clear visual so they can see why it's hard to think straight when they're super mad or scared.
Exactly. It gives them a simple way to understand what's happening inside them. Less confusing, maybe less scary.
And importantly, the book reminds us this isn't just about the kids' brains.
No way.
Yeah.
Integrating ourselves. Parents' own staircase. We adults have downstairs moments too, right? Times we lose it, yell, regret what we said. The book shares some honest parent examples.
So these moments are chances for our own brain integration work.
Absolutely. And chances to model self-regulation. Our kids are watching how we handle stress.
So what should we do when we feel like we're about to flip our lid?
3 steps. First, do no harm. Stop talking. Put your hands behind your back if you need to. Protect your child from your reaction. That's priority 1.
Okay.
Second, remove yourself if possible. Take a parental timeout. Say, I need a minute to calm down. Go splash water on your face. Do some jumping jacks your own. Move it or lose it. Model calming down.
Right.
Third, repair. Once you're calm, reconnect quickly. address any harm done, apologize for your actions. I'm sorry I yelled. I was feeling frustrated, but yelling wasn't okay. Repairing that connection helps everyone get back into balance.
It really underscores that this is about the whole family system.
It really is, building connection and resilience together.
So we've covered a lot today from this chapter. The whole upstairs-downstairs brain idea, why kids in us flip our lids, that amygdala acting like a baby gate.
And those 5 strategies. Engage, don't enrage, use it or lose it for the upstairs skills, move it or lose it with the body, teaching kids with the hand model.
And integrating ourselves.
Right. It's all about building that staircase.
And that core idea.
Yeah.
Recognizing if it's an upstairs strategic moment versus a downstairs overwhelmed moment changes everything.
Absolutely. Knowing when to connect and calm first before trying to teach is probably one of the biggest shifts.
This chapter really does feel like a practical roadmap, combining the why from brain science with the how for everyday parenting.
It gives you tools, concrete things to try.
Okay, so here's something to maybe take away and think about. How might just pausing in a tough moment to ask yourself, is this an upstairs or a downstairs situation? How might that simple question change your immediate reaction next time, whether it's with your child or maybe even with yourself?